back in 2015. None of these players were there, but Mike Noonan was still running the ship, where they fell 4-0 in the final to Stanford. They want to avenge that. Ryan Saylor and the Washington Huskies have never been here before, looking for their first title in program history and to bring it back to Seattle, which means a lot to them and their fans. With the Clemson fans, about a 4.5-hour drive. They are down here in droves. This is the back to
in the semifinal. Let me see that again. Oh, copy. Yep, got you.
Do you want me, Todd, because of timing, do you want me to, on the back end, when I get done, go into lineups, or do you want Down to reset it? Copy that.
Copy.
Friday night lead for the Tigers. Let's see how Fowler bounces back mentally and how his team bounces back emotionally after that mistake. What a start. We said an early goal would really change things up. I don't think we saw that happening. Fastest goal in the ACC this season. And one thing to note, too, with Mike Noonan's clubs. When scoring first, his teams in 12 years at Clemson, 119, 8-8.
And undefeated this season. That's the other thing I remember. 12-0 this season as well. They get out in front. They stay out in front. That's scary because they are known as a second-half team. So to have a lead like that this early on, that can also mess with your psyche. When you're used to playing in a different fashion, you score that early. How do they continue to handle it out in front for this extended period of time?
And Mike Noonan, he actually changed, folks. He had the beautiful orange pants on before. I don't know if he got superstitious. I don't know what happened, but he went with some khakis, and his boys started the game with an amazing goal. And as we said, that record they have that he has is stout to say the least, and the crowd here is definitely alive in that Clemson orange right now. Auburn boxes out Dylan Teves and draws the foul. Those are two Matt Herman semifinals. That is the National Player of the Year award. 15 semifinals named last week, and that's two of them on the offensive and defensive side of things. And there's Sam Fowler, the sophomore. He is an all Pac-12 performer, second team this past season. Honorable mention in his rookie campaign. Made a critical mistake. How hard is that to bounce back? You were center back. When you make critical errors in that part of the field, you can cost your team. How hard is it to bounce back from?
The good news is immediately you saw Ryan Saylor walk over to his goalkeeper. You notice that he's been rattled, and this early on in the game, Dallin, it's pretty much the only advantage that you have here because of mistakes and the fact that you have conceded in such dramatic fashion. But I do go back to my point that I made at the back end of the goal. He's still a big game player. You've made a mistake, that's fine. Everybody's going to make a mistake. The true mark of a great player is the fact that you can still get better as the game goes on. You're going to make mistakes throughout the game. Nobody's perfect. Even if you play a great ball, it's not the best ball you could ever play. So how do you react now? I have no issue with what he's going to do on the field. Can he just maintain that sort of quality consistency we've seen over the course of this entire season after such a blunder?
Callum Johnson sends it up there as Saylor, the captain in the Mac Herman semifinals in the back line, number 4, battling. Something to watch. He went down with a shoulder injury in the semifinal. He is starting this game, but Jamie Clark said not sure how much he can give them, but he's in the game. That's 4-1. We'll see how he goes. All right, Devin, we talked about keys, and we're going to give you a branded download here. Does it remain the same despite what we just saw in the first 30 seconds?
100%. Get on the ball, stay on the ball as much as possible. They were high 50s in terms of the possession battle against Notre Dame. They want to push the mid-60s, high 60s if they can against Washington. This team in the Huskies does not run very deep, and so if you can make them chase as much as possible, let the ball do the work, run them into the ground with this lead, and try and pick off a second.
And Jordan Morris, actually, in the 2015 final, when they played Clemson, Jordan Morris, the star from Stanford, which is Jamie Clark's alma mater you're seeing there. He scored against Clemson in the second game. Now Clemson has flipped the script here. This year, they've scored even faster. In less than 30 seconds, they put up a goal.
They were on the wrong end of that 4-0 beating, wasn't it? These Clemson teams, 15, 16, 17. Pretty impressive.
Washington is 3-1-1 this year, though, when their opponent scores first. So they have battled back and had success. Justin Malou striding forward. The senior skips it past Charlie Ostrom, but Saylor's there to clean it up. And Saylor puts it out for a corner. Uncharacteristic plays from two of the best defenders in the country, with Fowler being the keeper and Saylor being the center back early in this game.
Watch that shoulder, too, because that's the side where if you're going to spin like that, your momentum is going to come up against the pain that you're dealing with if you're Ryan Saylor. But he got an injection before the game to help him out a little bit. But both your goalkeeper, captain on the back line, pretty big mistakes inside 5 minutes.
Luis Felipe Fernandez Salvador, then Colin Pipe to take the corner. He had the opening goal in their semifinal match. Out swinging ball, header. Malou got a piece of it. Hamdi Diop, sophomore center back, got a piece of it. And now what is Devin's download here for the Huskies?
take the calculated risks. And this early on, you wouldn't expect that you might have to be a bit more on the front foot. But the Huskies are so good at sitting, watching rotation, absorb the pressure, and then spring and go in the other direction. I've said to you multiple times this season that they are one of, if not the best counterattacking team in all of college soccer, and that's going to have to ring true tonight. But it is their benefit the way this team lines up.
Johnson's first touch let him down. Reed played a nice ball to him. Can he clip it back into the middle? He does. Sela was arriving, but Ashiel Robin, the center back, clears it out. Pipe brings it down. Radford goes to the whistle. Pipe got a rocket off, but he called it a little high boot.
And with the amount of movement that you get, there is wide open spaces. Good little step up here on the far side by Charlie Ostrom. Just can't go that high if you're Pipe, unless it's the strike that we saw in the semifinal game.
It was an absolute rocket off the crossbar and in. He scored in the 11th minute against Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish did equalize in the 21st with a penalty spot in Jack Lynn, and that went to penalties. In the end, Clemson prevailing just like they did in the quarterfinal round up in Corvallis in Oregon State, who was the #1 overall seed, a team that Washington knows well. They lost to. It's their only loss of the year. 18-1-2 was to the Beavers, and one of the draws to the Beavers as well. One of those games they played with 9 men, though. They battled out. And obviously a big game brings out the heavy hitters. Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, George Levkoff, the Pac-12 commissioner. Obviously both these men were integral in the alliance between the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, and taking in the match here. A beautiful day in Cary, North Carolina.
What's that conversation about?
Maybe that first goal by Isaiah Reed. I don't know. Maybe breaking down the CFP Final Four, and there's a lot to talk about college sports.
What you really want to watch here right now, down is as the Huskies build from back to front. We'll talk about the transitional moments, but those risks that are going to be key. The space actually lines up. There's a tug.
Scardina was on a dead run from the midfield, and you see Charlie Asensio. He's going to go into the book. One of the veterans in this team, Asensio, the senior. This is his 82nd cap for Clemson. Former All-League player. This worthy of a yellow here, professional foul?
The interesting thing for me is both semifinal games were pretty wide open, and what he's trying to do is come back across them. A lot of times as you jump over, your mind tells you you're going to be able to make that transition, but usually you get caught up. There's actually more of contact on the lower end between the feet as opposed to the outstretched arm. I've always said this to you, and it continues to ring true this afternoon. If you're going to call that now and give a card for something that is that tug, now it's transitional, possibly warranted, but if you're going to do it now, you're saying you're going to run a tight ship all day long.
This team is deadly on set pieces, and that man, #4, Ryan Saylor, Jamie Clark told us before the game, you won't see him up top early in set pieces, but that was before they conceded a goal. They're worried about his shoulder, but he has 6 goals in the campaign, second on this team, all from free kick opportunities. They've scored 18 goals in the last 19 matches on set pieces. They are deadly here. Can they capitalize? Tevis fakes, Ostrom to put it in. Saylor was arriving, and he goes down. First time he's hit the deck, he pops up okay. And Jamie Clark, as you mentioned, is the coach of the Huskies in his 11th season. He's been to the NCAA tournament 9 times. This is their first appearance in the College Cup and their first opportunity to win a championship here. He was a great player in his own right, playing for his father, Bobby, at Stanford. He was an All-American back in the late 90s. Then he coached at Notre Dame along with Brian Weiss, who he beat in the semifinal, one of his close friends. And Bobby Clark, not in attendance, but obviously Coach Chad Riley, too, at Notre Dame. His fingerprints are all over this College Cup.
The regularity at which the Huskies turn out quality seasons. It's really hard to put a value on what Clark brings to this program because at least 12 wins the last 5 seasons, 3 years in a row. The Elite 8 was this year progressing a little bit further, as we can tell, and 10 out of the 11 seasons he's been in charge, 12-win seasons. Yeah. That's not fair in some conferences, right? But he's doing it against the UCLAs, against the Stanfords, right? I mean, top-notch competition. Oregon State, of course, this season, a great year.
Kendall Burns on the ball, All-League player, hits the pass to Tevis.
the issues they ran into a lot in that first game. They chased way too much against Georgetown. Defensively, everybody looks at their goals and they show defensively they can defend with the best of them. They sat back. The defensive line was too deep, and they weren't able to provide themselves any sort of relief on the offensive side. Clark said we got to be better in that aspect. Yeah, we defended great, but we didn't give ourselves any chances to try and go be brave. Going down a goal early, you'll step up now. Chase a little bit more, stretch yourself a little bit further. But to that initial point, that benefits Clemson because you got to run more.
Yep.
You're not on the ball as much. Get more tired.
Clemson had a nice spell of possession here. They had an opportunity to spring Justin Malou in a switch in their initial break of the pressure, but Alvaro Gomez chose not to. Malou, who's going to receive the ball now, the 27th overall pick in the Columbus Crew, was not too happy about not getting the ball then. Can he run this one down? Saylor's over there to scoop it up. And no foul call there. Saylor advances it further. Huskies are great in transition to crowd it out quickly. Pipe brings it down, gets to the feet of Usman Sila. He is dangerous running at defenders. Up to Pipe. Richard just takes it down. Taken down by Gomez, the junior from Spain. Over to Amadou Diop, sophomore from Senegal. To his countryman Sila, back to Quinn McNeil, a local product, South Carolina. Scardina is able to keep it in play, but Sila scoops it up. Pipe, clever back heel. Johnson and Malou are riding. Johnson's on it. He clips it in. Pipe gets head to it. Nothing on it. See Saylor again going to the deck here.
He's leaning on that left shoulder too, the one that's bothering him, and right to it, springs up. No issues. Love the fact that Jamie Clark sent him high on the set piece opportunity as well. That's not chasing the game though. Just got an understanding, okay, we need a presence. Let him know that we're fine.
So take a look at this young man's career. You saw there, he redshirted twice. He's a super senior, his 6th year. In his first 4 years, he played in 13 games. Last 2 years, he's been an all-league player. This year, he was the defensive player of the year in the conference in the Pac-12 and a Mac Herman semifinalist. That is a young man developing year over year, never giving up, really, when his career was not going well at the beginning. Sam Fowler hearing it from the crowd. Gio Mugaletti tangled up with Diop. Oh, Sila works good recovery. Kalani also Rienzi on the ball over to Ostrom. Switch out to Scardina. Ushered out by Asensio, who is on a yellow card. And Saylor's going to come forward again for the long throws. This again, they will use these as a weapon as well. Any throw within about 25 yards of the goal line, they are trying to throw that into the box. Jose Rienzi will deliver. Freshman from Berkeley, California. To Saylor, gets the flick on, kind of. Broken up there by Christian Soto as Clemson was trying to transition out. Malou and Reed not on the same page. Shiel Robin, the senior. See that Bowling Green transfer, the other center back playing with Ron Saylor. Actually from the same club that grew up in France. Same club with Valentin Noel, who was a Mac Herman finalist last year. Fit attacker.
No wrong.
Oh, Noel? Yeah,
he was
outstanding.
Lights out, man.
The team got here to the college fell in the semifinals, though, to Indiana. Eventually fell to Marshall in the Sila sends her the overlap. Sila hits Asensio, flips it back. Reed is there. Reed's got two. A brace for the junior from Rock Hill, South Carolina, repping the Tigers and giving them a 2-0 lead.
Everybody just stopped as this ball came back across the 18. Beautiful movement once again by the Clemson Tigers in the lead up to this game, asking what the scouting report was like. Mike Noonan said, they're kind of a mix, a little bit like Kentucky, a little bit of Denver, a little bit of everybody, and they're playing like it though, because they were brilliant in the first half against Kentucky. Similar movements, coverage at the right back spot, and the rotation is magnificent. The ball to the backside, he's about 9-10 yards out, no marks, no one stepping. Time stands still for no man except Isaiah Reed in this first half. Brilliant header.
You couldn't have placed it any better if you're Isaiah Reed. He now is the team leader for Clemson with 9 goals on the campaign. And Mike Noonan did tell us before, I actually had to ask yesterday if Reed was hurt, because in the first game of this College Cup, he didn't play that much as a starter. Played just over half the game. They went with Mohamed Say, who's an injured striker for them for most of the game, 40 minutes, most of the second half, I should say. And he said Reed just wasn't there. And Reed did not perform to his level, so he didn't get many minutes. Well, stepping up in this game.
I mentioned to you as well in the Georgetown matchup, and you get the same look because obviously it's the same team in Washington, that there are really 2 areas of concern when you're lined up in a white jersey tonight. And if you're sitting your flat 4, your 2 midfielders will come deep. It's the space in front. So that's when guys like a Cal Johnson or Luis Felipe Fernandez can get on the ball. Usman Sila, we've seen that already. Yeah. But then as the 2 midfielders come high, this becomes this pocket in front of that back line. That's where Reed took advantage of it this time around, because the 2 midfielders come high, they rotate back to the outside. As this ball comes back across, that gap never gets closed. And so Reed just slides right into it. Nobody steps up into it, which is the biggest thing for me. How does not one player with everybody in the box go after what has to be the most dangerous man on the front line for this Tigers team?
2-0 is the deficit just inside of 15 minutes. Washington has not been down 2-0 all season. And there was a sub. Get to that in a second as the ball's played in. There is the sub, Lucas Meek, 33 white, challenging for the ball. He scored the opening goal in their semifinal against Georgetown. One of the more talented attacking players. Reed goes down hard. He's rolling around. I want to see that. So that's Sila. Daniel Radford has a little word with Nick Scardina.
A lot of movement on that right side so far for the Clemson Tigers, hence the substitution. And his counterpart, Scardina, got to be more active here, because the way that Clemson has been on the ball so far, they're pinning back on this left-hand side. Charlie Asensio, very uncharacteristic, playing a higher line. A lot of times they'll send, and we talked about that, Justin Malou. They'll push him up. Oscar Akron slides over. They create this back 3 of sorts, and Asensio is really the ever-steady that just kind of sits on the left side of this back line and holds the shape. Instead, as they push him forward, it's forced both outside midfielders for the Huskies to sit deeper. They don't really have an outlet.
Seeing the ball turned by Ipe, and then he skips past me. It's played by McNeil. Tevez is able to pick it up. And this way the Huskies can be dangerous. These transitional moments, but foul call there. Scardina went down of his own volition. Quick restart. Tevez on it. He's got runners in the box. Back post. Just a little too tall for me. Saylor, the center back's going to track it down. Left center ball. Shiel-Rabi, the left center back, is up high. Ipe plays it outside of his boot to Reed. Reed against Burks, 1v1. Reed's got 2. Can he get a hattie? Oh, he's taken down, no call. Reed's trying to get up. And then the call actually called for handling it. You see Daniel Radford point to his hand, and Reed went down.
You kids at home want to be a top-class defender? Watch Kendall Burns. This is a right back coming all the way over on the left-hand side in transition, just standing. A really electric player up. Doesn't let his hips get crossed over when he cuts back. Little touch on the ball. Use that big frame. Don't let the speed play. The angles game really done to perfection by Kendall Burns.
Kendall Burns is second team All Pac-12 performer this past season. Second team All Pac-12 last year as well. Reed lays it off for Sela. Sela pulls it back out of some trouble. Vicencio.
It's scary, by the way. If you're so used to playing on one side as a defender, and all of a sudden you're tracking against your weak side on that left shoulder, chasing the other direction. And I'm left-footed. Don't put it on my right side. I'm not interested in that argument. That's a really good job. You go down 2-0, you're chasing again, you're thinking, wow, I make this mistake, it's 3, and the game's over. It was perfect defending.
Meek making the run through the middle, played by Robin, well read by Ogden. Blue on it. Bodies go down, play on. Vicencio.
They're playing.
I was just thinking the same
these boys
thing.
are playing. I'm telling you.
They're feeling it.
About an hour and a half to kick. Talking to June. It's different for the guys. Their viewpoint is skewed differently than mine because they just want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care how they do it. Now, to be fair, when you get into a tournament, you don't always have to have the best style, show off the best things.
Survive in advance.
But even said, I want to win. I want to play the way that we're capable of, and don't really feel like we've done that to the best of our ability recently. Okay, when's the last time you did it? You notice with his response, he didn't give a full game answer. Mm-hmm. So he's still waiting for that complete package. But he did reference, as we've talked about so far, that Kentucky game. Mm-hmm. They were on the ball a lot. Because of the lack of a number 9 who plays with more midfielders, that you'll see pop up in different locations. So you have Usman Sela, who's on the right side. He'll drop down in, constantly challenging the shape of the team across from them. And that's exactly what's going on right now on the lead. They're not backing off.
Meek floats it in. Mark comes and claims it. And Clemson beat Kentucky in their second game in the NCAA tournament, 2-1. 89th minute winner by Alvaro Gomez. They've had some heart-pounding finishes in this tournament. 89th minute winner there, Oregon State. An 85th minute penalty drawn by Oscar Ogren, the big center back, and then capitalized on by Pipe. Put them into extra time where they won in penalties. Returned by Sela. Reed lays it off. Great pass by Pipe. Johnson, can he get there? Yes, he does. 1v1 with Ostrom. Help is coming. Reed, nice flip. Sela dancing through. Pipe lays it off. Vicencio stings it. Not sure if it caught a body on the way through. Ogren. Blue finds McNeil. Switched out to Malou by McNeil. The waves are coming from the crowd as they are stringing passes together. Vicencio looking for the critical one. Johnson arriving. How hard is this to defend against? This is probably the 20-something consecutive pass since you've had the ball. You're hearing it from the crowd. You're down 2-0. What is this like for the Huskies?
The difficulty level isn't really the cause for concern. It's more of an annoyance. And what ends up happening is, especially when you're on the wrong end of a 2-0 scoreline down, is you chase so much that once you get the ball back, you tend to make mistakes. You play balls that you shouldn't. So you chase for 15, 20 passes. There's 30-second intervals where you're not on the ball whatsoever. And when you do get it, you try and ping one into the corner and it's not there. And they have nothing to show for it so far, even when they have gotten it back. And think about what's going on right there. 16.5 shots is what their average is in a game. 6 is what went on in that semifinal matchup against Georgetown. Now, the argument you could make is they were really efficient. 2 out of the 6 end up in the back of the net. 30% of the time works every time. So that was good from them in the second half. But they're also not used to playing in this manner. You can't show any sort of showcase on the offensive side of the ball because they're chasing so much. It's got to be a conversation for your captains and your coach of, let's settle down, let's get back to what we're great at, and let's go find some goals.
Working an anchorman reference, just blow right by it. 30% of the time works every time. It's just bits of real panther in there. It makes it good.
A couple movie buffs floating around the production crew.
60% of the time.
Showing a little love for him.
All right, enough clown around here. Let's do some business. Week 14 Monday Night Football matchup. It's a big one, NFC West. The Rams taking on the Cardinals. The Cardinals atop the NFC overall as well, the number 1 seed right now, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ESPN. Also ABC, ESPN Deportes, ESPN Plus, and the ESPN app. Our coverage begins at Monday Night Countdown, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Do you expect more subs coming in? Because we're about 25 minutes in here. These teams played, 36 hours ago. Recovery was a critical piece. Yesterday, Clemson, you're in ACC country here in Cary, North Carolina. They went down to NC State's facilities, helped get them recovered. They brought a masseuse from South Carolina. They always use. Hold that shot. Thought as Tevez should have played the ball, does not. Washington got some recovery in. They have a big squad. They played a little 11v11 for some guys that didn't get any minutes on Friday. Yesterday, but do you expect to see some more numbers in here?
They have a big squad, but in terms of depth and the way that they use them, they don't rotate a lot of players at all. 15. And yeah, it's 13, 14, 15 might be the max. A couple of those guys are defenders. So you're not used to seeing names coming off the bench to try and help out. Lucas Meek, they bring on early. Even though Rosales, he's just not there. And he wasn't there in the semifinal either. Outside of the game, and Ryan Crowley's another one. They are 2 starters, though. That's the good thing that you have if you're Jamie Clark. Guys used to being in the mix who just last season wore the shirt regularly in the 11.
This drives it in. Diop gets his head on it. Knocked out to Ostrom. Flag stays down. He's able to track it down. Ostrom floats it in. Headed out by McNeil. There's Rienzi working against Johnson. Ostrom. Clear. George Marks not seeing much action. He did see big-time action in Notre Dame game. They made 2 huge saves in the overtime periods. Get it to penalties, where he made another save and tends to give them the 5-3 win in penalty kicks. Okay, forces the turnover. Placed on the channel. From looking for Miglietti in the channel and read well by Aubrey. Moved into the Tiger faithful. Meek turns. Try to play a little reverse pass. Meek stings it. Marks is there, man. First shot of the match for the Huskies. Diop plays into his countrymen. Some of these sophomores. Switch to Johnson. It is completed. He comes down with it. He's got Pipe. Still Pipe, and he's called for the foul. Oh. Christian Soto We'll add something extra to the senior from Ecuador, Felipe.
He's trying to get the ball and play quickly here, but Felipe just in front of him. Back heel. Cheers.
No card there?
No, marking his territory. Saying, the way the game's gone, you wouldn't be surprised if he did show a card.
Marking his territory. Okay. I feel like asking you that is just it's pointless. There's just zero shot as a former center back. You're like, yeah, that should be a yellow. Ogden lays it back to Mark.
You know, I actually prefer to be a bit more wide open and play more run and gun style, which we saw for the most part in its entirety within both semifinal games.
Flips it over. He's looking for me. All right, Isaiah Reed's coming off. I'm sure he's going to have a big ovation. Just 27 seconds into the match. This is how we started.
What a ball up over the top. Just challenge it. Like Clemson, so good in transition, but with the ball at their feet. They don't go quick. They just play the numbers game. Dig to the back post. Excellent finish by the junior.
8th and 9th goals of the campaign in the biggest game of his career. He's played in some big ones. They've been in the ACC championship 2 seasons ago. I should say last year. He was part of that team, starting lineup. Year before that, they were in critical game goal of ACC championship as well. He played less minutes as a freshman. But to step up here in this environment with the College Cup on the line, it's been huge.
The other issues that the Huskies are dealing with right now, and it's a tendency of theirs that has benefited them. 2 outside midfielders, Mystique and Nick Scardino, tend to play pretty narrow, like to build the numbers on the inside and use it to their advantage, where they'll come off that back line and they'll have numbers to go quickly the other direction. 60-yard runs, 50-yard runs. The problem is when they're trying to distribute right now, Clemson has compacted the middle of the field. And so all of the midfielders that they have at their disposal, even on quick turnovers, are right back to the interior. So even when you play through the middle and look for a Scardita into feet or someone up top like a Tevez, you don't have that relief on the outside. So there's all this space on the exterior they're not stepping into. It's real easy for the Tigers to just sit here and say, okay, you're playing right into us.
We're looking for Brandon Parrish, who was checked in the game for Pipe. Ball goes out. Quickly tell you about the coverage of the NCAA championships continues with women's volleyball. The championship semifinal action begins Thursday, December 16th, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. For more information on the NCAA women's volleyball championship, log on to ncaa.com, the official online home for all 90 NCAA championships. And just into the action is Elijah Paul, the freshman, battling with Amity Diop, Alfred Husky's throw. Came in for Gio Miglietti. With Paul. Gilbert, Arizona, working. Gets a cross off. Goes off the heels. Hooks it free over to Parrish. Sophomore from Nashville, 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year in that state. Blue doesn't even challenge Paul for the ball. That Paul's on. Possible opportunity. Still Paul. He goes down. Daniel Radford doesn't even entertain it. Callum Johnson, the young man that's played almost 91 college games. 3 years at Boston College. Had redshirt a year, transfer here to Clemson, played 2 years, been an impactful player here for the Tigers. Parrish on it again. Goes down, no call. Off Parrish. We talk about Reed and why he's been so important, though, but they're playing without, as you said already in this broadcast, 2 of their key strikers, one being James Brighton, the senior that his career may be over. He had an ACL injury, he had multiple surgeries after that. And before the game, he walks around with a sledgehammer. Now, the etymology of this is in 2014 and 15. 15's the year where they got to the College Cup final again. They had this part of their strength and conditioning program. It was to symbolize being the hammer, not the nail in every game they approach. Well, they brought it back out this year with the intention of taking it all the way to this place, hoisting the trophy, and then retiring that sledgehammer that he wields around quite easily now because he's jacked.
It's huge.
He's getting in quite a bit of work. But that young man has been, we asked him, how hard is it for, this guy scored the game-winning goal when they won the 2020 ACC championship game in that tournament. He's made big goals. He's made big plays throughout his career. How hard is it to be a leader when you can't be on the field? It's easy. I love my brothers. It's the tightest family I've ever been a part of. It is really simple to go out there and lead these guys from the sideline. Personally, knowing that I may never play again, but I have a role here and I love playing.
We can talk goals, we can talk tactics, what the trends are, but there's something to be said about the character within this Clemson Tigers squad, and you can't teach that. And whether you've lost a captain, a striker, multiple within this system, defenders have gone down. We alluded to that in the open. It's the next man up type thing, and the belief that no matter what, they're going to find a way to get through it because it hasn't always been pretty. Their performances have not been great throughout this run, and yet still we're right here.
They persevered through it, and obviously having no Brighton. He's been out since the third game of the season, but also losing Mohamed Say about 7 weeks ago. Say is going to be available. He played 40 minutes in the semifinal game, but he's a shell of himself. The junior from Spain is an outstanding physical specimen, but got great feet too, but he really can't give you what he once did. So they've been adjusting and changing and doing it successfully.
Been on those teams, the all-star teams that everybody looks at go, they're going to win every single game. Never lived up to the expectations. It was the teams that I was on where we had the highlight players, if you will, but so many role players, everybody that was just kind of willing to do the dirty work, right? And everybody knew their role. And even when you didn't know your role, you're willing to step into it. That's what you get with this Clemson squad right now. The belief that no matter what's going right, what's going wrong, we're going to find a way to win.
And there's Say on the bench, as you said, he played in that game Friday night. Big, bulky knee brace. He's 16 goals. Brighton's 12 goals. 28 goals aren't really in the lineup.
That's really the turning point of this offense this season when he went down in that Syracuse game. Right? It's not the loss. It's not the way that they played. It was him as an individual. And how are we going to play moving forward? They no longer had the number 9 option. Isaiah Reed can cut from the outside, but with Brighton gone, Mohamed Say out, you had to find a way to be better. It's the simple word. You had to be better because you had so many midfielders. Really talented. Okay, you can put the ball on the deck, but what are you going to be able to do with it? And they would get about 80% of the way up the field and have nothing to show for it. Now all of a sudden, you set your line. Notice most of the time when they do get it, it's 15, 20 yards inside the center circle, and then they've got the whole field to play with. They're not really deep at all.
Renzi gets us in trouble, finds Burks. The reverse pass does not connect. Renzi on it again. Jamie Clark said, if we're going to win this game, we need Renzi to be doing more things in the final third, getting further up the pitch, but there he is in this time. Switch out to Scardina. I'm looking for Tevez and Chirona too much. Just over 8 minutes to play here for Cary, North Carolina, alongside Devin Kerr. I'm Dallin Cuff. 2-0. Clemson over Washington in the College Cup final. Jamie Clark's team never has been here before. This Washington program has never been to a College Cup, never been to a final. The program, the athletic program, actually has never won a men's national title. The football and men's rowing titles they have are not NCAA titles. So technically, they've never won an NCAA championship, trying to accomplish history here today in multiple ways, to find themselves down 2-0 through 2 Isaiah Reed goals, one in the first minute of the match, the second in the 15th minute of the match. That said, against Georgetown, it was 0-0. Washington did score 2 goals in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. I mean, this team also, they're top 15 in the nation in goals scored per game. They're able to have a quick strike offense. Ball played out. Marks comes and claims offside.
Offside indicated against Washington.
And offside, we'll tell you about Tuesday night. Just one college basketball game on ESPN. Should be a good one. Jaden Shackelford leads the balanced attack for number 9 Alabama, who coming off a huge and slightly controversial win late last night against a ranked Houston team, a very good Houston team. They'll take on Penny Hardaway's Memphis Tigers, who are struggling a bit right now. Our coverage starts 9 Eastern, 8 Central. And like everything else, it's available on the ESPN app, one tap. Elton Chiafumba, the freshman, lays it up to Parrish. Parrish lays it off to McNeil.
Should have hit that. Definitely should have hit that one. Some of the clouded decision making, though, when you have so many numbers forward.
Neal driven. Whoa. Pinballs off Sailor out for a corner.
You got that confidence down, that tiki-taka style football that Clemson's showing you right now. I feel like there's always going to be a player over that shoulder, and although there was one that you could have played down into the channel, and they slowly got it out here. So much space at the top of the 18. Don't be afraid to go it alone.
Here comes a corner. Dylan Sullivan checked in. 6 and orange. Came in for Callum Johnson at the last dead as well. Then in college soccer, you can sub out in the first half, come back in the second. Harris should take the corner. In swinger. Oscar Ogden gets his head to it. Ami Diop, the center back partner, is going to be able to chase it down. Fumba. Sullivan steps and misses. This could be a transition opportunity for the Huskies. Good recovery by Sealer. Is that a good recovery or the poor execution by the Huskies?
It's a poor decision coming up through by Chris Myers, because he's got Lucas Meek down on the left channel. Just give it to him. That's some of the stuff that I talk about when you chase so much down. Your judgment gets clouded. You don't make the right decisions. Even though he just came on as a substitute, trying to get acclimated to this environment, slow to react, and it's not a physical thing. He had plenty of room to run into. Just took the more difficult route.
Myers, a freshman, did not play in that semifinal game. In there now, chasing this ball down, 7 in white. Team in for Scardina. Ball to Paul. Burks. Soto on it. Not seen much of the ball. All-league midfielder, 14 in white. Touch by Paul. Robbins steps into space. Myers might give it a ride. Pulls.
Better though. Much better from the Huskies. And even when they get stuck in one little area, they're willing to play out of it. That's what we've seen all season long, and finally making its way onto the field here. Chris Myers, good recovery, because about 90 seconds ago, had the ball, the opportunity to stick it down on the left side, did not. Plays it into traffic, gets it back, goes it alone. The willingness to have that confidence. Sometimes for a young man in his first season, you need that. You need the consistency of the senior players who have been through and seen stuff like this before. But the naivety you'll get of some of the youngsters can benefit you too.
Ball headed down. Camilo Comey, number 11 orange, challenging Burks for the ball. Just checked in, a freshman from Rosario, Argentina. Town made famous by one Lionel Messi. Chris Myers on it now. Asensio wins that battle easily. Looking for the feet of Comey, gets him. Comey battling with Costa Rienzi. Comey also played for a club that has quite a bit of history. The Nato Cesarini club in Argentina, where Santiago Solari, Javier Mascherano, Martin Di Michelis all came from. These guys were all obviously guys who played at the World Cup level, a number of them played in that final. Solari, a little bit older, but was coaching Real Madrid and others. Very accomplished program he came from. Robin skips by Comey. Under 2 to play. Burke's trying to get in line. Floats it out. Robin's deflected out. Corner. Come up at half from Cary, North Carolina. We'll get you Isaiah Reed's goals and break down how and why that happened. It is still Jimmy V week. We're just about 30 minutes from Raleigh, North Carolina, where he became and helped make NC State famous in the V Foundation. Such an impactful foundation in his name. We'll talk about that as well. And some of the images of the 2021 College Cup. Swinging ball. Might have gone off Robin's arm. Clemson players were asking for it. Ostrom. Looking for his 10th assist on the campaign. Burst all over him. And actually went up flagging up for offside.
Washington, 1 minute remaining in the first half.
Countdown is on. Brooks is running out of room. It's going to be 2-0 at the break. Not good news for the Huskies. When scoring first, Mike Noonan's teams are 119, 8-8 in his 12 years at Clemson. And when leading at half, they're 82, 5-4. Your thoughts on the first 45, Devin?
Clemson Tigers were awesome for about 25, 30 minutes. And they get their 2 goals, even if it's a mistake off Sam Fowler. But remember this, as well as they've played at the beginning of this game, they did the same against Kentucky. That slacked off in the second half. 5 minutes to go, they gave up a goal that almost cost them. There's more talent on this Washington team. They are more than capable, although having never dealt with it before, of coming back in this game, playing better in the second half. That's going to be the conversation with Noonan and his boys at halftime.
Well, let's talk to Mike Noonan right now. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. You're up 2-0 at the break. You told us before the game that it wasn't just about winning. You wanted to have a good performance. How do you feel about the performance in the first 45?
Well, I think about 25, 30 minutes of it was outstanding. And then we kind of lost our way in the midfield defensively and lost possession of the ball. But for about 25, 30 minutes, we were outstanding.
Coach, 2 outside midfielders for the Huskies. As the game has gone on and they've made changes, started to create a little bit more width, your guys have had to respond to that. What's the conversation with your exterior mids and how they track defensively in the second half?
Well, it's just got more organized a little bit. We've got to turn to the inside and not allow the channel play, because it's not just the outside mids, it's the forward running in behind them.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Tigers are up 2-0 on the Huskies right now, looking for their 3rd College Cup title in program history. Will they close the deal? We'll find out shortly. When we come back, though, we'll show you some highlights. How did we get to this point in the College Cup? Isaiah Reed, man. Keep balling. We'll be back in a minute.
3, 4, 5.
Check, 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 check.
Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep.
What's the first? Sugar Mill? Okay, cool. Welcome back to beautiful Cary, North Carolina. That is apparently the legendary Sugar Mill, just miles down the road. Clemson feeling pretty sweet right now, up 2-0 over the Huskies, the 8 seed versus the 2 seed with the College Cup on the line. And before we get to our game, let's take a look at the Capital One Cup standings as teams compete for a combined $400,000 in student-athlete scholarships from Capital One. Right now, NC State women up top with 20 points, BYU, New Mexico following. Northern Arizona up top with 20, Iowa State, Oklahoma State on the men's side. Good luck to all the ladies and the gentlemen competing in that. Welcome back into our set here alongside the very dapper Devin, who was wearing a jacket before, but he wants to show off these colors. I'm Dallin Cuff. Devin, we knew it would be an exciting game. It's been an interesting game when you have a goal in 27 seconds.
Shocked that it wasn't a goal, that it was a mistake like that. Because as good as Sam Fowler is, and yes, he can make mistakes, it's never in that fashion. And then they never recover. That was the bigger one for me, too, because they continued to step. There was pressure. They chased, again, way too much. We saw that in the semis. Can you respond now in the second half? That's a big ask.
Well, before we get to the second half, let's show you the first half highlights and what we mean 27 seconds in. Huge stage. The Huskies have never been competing for a College Cup. Clemson's program's been here back in 2015
season. But, again, right back to it. That was the biggest thing here because they put the ball on the deck and they made him chase. Let the ball do the work. That's something you learn when you're 8 years old. And Noonan just says, guys, if we're on the ball, they're not. They're not very deep. Let's run them into the ground. And then no one steps up to Reed. Reed just stands there. This is training ground stuff. Inside, outside, back post, finish, 2-0.
Outstanding header, puts them up 2-0 right now, 2-0. And the possession seems closer, but really Clemson, and we said it during the game, and they were just moving, feeling it. The Olays are coming from the crowd.
Here's the problem you run into as well if you're on Washington. Clemson is a second half team. 71% of their goals are in the second half. And in the second half, 16 of the 22 halves that they've played, they haven't conceded a goal.